Better keep your ear to the ground because there's a new vulnerability in the SonicWall firewall.
So, John, I hear you bring us a story about a 0-day, I believe is in SonicWall firewalls. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's still like very early days in this story because it just broke yesterday in terms of when we're filming the show here. And SonicWall is still investigating this, but SonicWall is a manufacturer of a lot of firewall and VPN appliances, mostly used in like the small to medium-sized businesses, but also in some of the other larger enterprises as well. And they put out a bulletin. It's a little vague right now that there's a potential vulnerability. They're pretty sure there's a 0-day vulnerability in their SMA 100 series appliances. And SMA is the, let me see, I think I have it on the screen here. It's their secure mobile access appliance. And so that's used as like a VPN gateway for people to get in into corporate environments. So they're still investigating this. They know that there's some sort of vulnerability there, but they're not quite sure exactly how it's triggered and everything that's impacted by this vulnerability right now. And I guess one of the things about it to me that's interesting is that we know there's been other VPN appliance-based vulnerabilities within the past several years here. So I know there was one with F5 Big IP last year that was pretty big. There was, I think, a Citrix NetScaler vulnerability as well as a Pulse VPN vulnerability, maybe back in 2019 timeframe. So, this is just yet another potential vulnerability that people should be aware of. So that being said, if you have the any of the SonicWall SMA 100 series appliances, I'd recommend you go check SonicWall's website because they, even as we're going to the showtime here, they were updating some information about this vulnerability and how their investigation is going. As far as we know, only they've seen it. I don't know if it's been with respect to a customer or in their own footprints. But they have some recommendations that people should, at least enable two-factor authentication on their devices, on their appliances, so that, it's not just a password-based authentication. Enable some sort of GeoIP type filtering, so you can block traffic from places that you don't want to access your VPN concentrator. That'll reduce the kind of footprint of vulnerability that you might have. So if you know that you're a small to medium-sized business and all of your workforce is in the Northeast of the United States, maybe you can do some GeoIP-based filtering for just that area of the world, and that would, drastically reduce the footprint of vulnerability. It's not going to eliminate it altogether, but it'll help you out quite a bit from just random scanning and people discovering your potentially vulnerable device. And they have some other recommendations about like restricting access to the portal and schedule login, log-offs, and things like that. So I would recommend people check that out. This past year and even in their 2020 into this year, there's been a lot more reliance on corporations and small businesses on their VPN hardware solutions for letting their workforce get in because a lot of people are working from home nowadays. So, the exposure in terms of, how much traffic is being routed for your business through the VPN is probably a lot higher than it ever has been. So, that's another consideration of, kind of your reliance on these products, especially if you use SonicWall or any of the others, F5, et cetera, that had vulnerabilities last year in terms of, making sure that you're on top of any of these potential vulnerabilities, getting things patched as quick as possible so that you can ensure that your remote workforce is able to, continue to get in.
Yeah, this kind of vulnerability reminds me of something that always comes up in this show, which is that, these quote unquote, and we don't know in this case if a bad guy if a bad guy got access to a zero day or not, right? But in general, like, why do we see VPN access being targeted so much? Well, once you have VPN access to the, once you can crack the thing that gives you VPN access, you got access to a lot of places, a lot of companies, right? So to me, it makes sense that this kind of patching has to be priority for companies, right? Like a 0 day on your VPN is like, all right, stop. Let's see what else can be stopped, and let's concentrate on patching the thing that everybody working from home is using to get into the network. And I'm looking at some of the vulnerabilities here. I mean, I hope people take it seriously if they're using it for the small business and things like that, right? My assumption, because we don't know who found the 0 day, it could be a researcher, right? And at some point, they're going to want to show off their research. That happens very often, right? Like, we see 0 days get patched, and in a month or 2 months later, we find here's a research group that found it, and here's how you can technically, not exactly how to duplicate it, but just you get the idea, right? And now you can have people, malicious groups, trying to find out how to bypass it themselves. Anyway, it's just interesting that I feel like VPN should be one of those things that, when getting patched, should be at the top of everybody's list, if that is the way for your people to get into the business.
Now, I was kind of curious, like I say, because it's fairly new, right? So obviously the point of a 0 day or O day, right? But I guess there hasn't been much widespread, right? Because it's fairly new, so there hasn't been any indications that it's affecting, more customers or anything, being reported.
Right. At this time, SonicWall has been really tight-lipped about it. They haven't released any details about the vulnerability. So it seems like only they really know, and we don't know that it's being exploited, in the wild at scale, as far as I'm aware. So, there might be more to come, because, as I said, this story is pretty early on. It was kind of announced about 24 hours ago. So we might have more information, in the upcoming days here.
Yeah, I guess it would be early, but, you see like Zytel and others getting, impacted with the, hardware devices and things. So I didn't know if maybe it was similar. Of course, it's not going to be exactly similar, but, and then is it maybe targeted, or could it be internally related, that things like that, occurred? But again, I guess, like you said, it's probably early to really get a good determination of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and, the other thing I was going to mention, Jonathan had said, people should be, pretty concerned about this from a kind of managing your business perspective. These VPN concentrators are really your gatekeeper to your internal network. And if a hacker can break through that, maybe unauthenticated, I don't know how this vulnerability works, but if they can get through that and get onto your VPN for your corporation, most corporations, their internal networks are pretty, I wouldn't say insecure, but they basically trust that whoever's on that internal network is probably somebody who's supposed to be there. So I would say that their security posture is probably a little lessened from something that's, directly internet facing. So for a hacker to get through a VPN appliance and get onto the soft inside part of your corporate network, your LAN, so to speak, that is something that once they're on there, they're probably going to be able to get really far quickly through a lot of your internal infrastructure. So something to be concerned about. And that's all I really had on that one. Just something to let people know about, and especially if you're a user of SonicWall products, to keep on top of it and see what's going on this week relative to patches available.
Yeah, because I still didn't see, well, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see mention that this exploit can be done by just having the VPN exposed to the internet, which will be probably every single one of those devices, right? Like, that is the point of having VPN for the most part, unless it's something internal.
Right.
But so I did not see if just being internet exposed may be vulnerable. I mean, that would definitely follow up with this. Once they release more information.
I'm assuming that is the case, because some of their mitigation steps around doing two-factor and GeoIP fencing your
Yeah.
VPN appliance kind of indicates that, yeah, it's it's the internet-facing side that they're trying to protect.
Right.
So I think that that's probably the case.